Nah, Roger compared to Sinner, I'm saying yeah, Sinner every day.
Top three not existing anymore.
When you saw Federer, Novak, or Nadal in your quarter, it was like, how do you want to go home, basically? That's how good they were.
The big three, Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, ruled tennis for nearly 2 decades. But now, a new generation led by Sinner and Alcaraz is taking over. In this video, 3 tennis players share their thoughts on how the game has changed. Let's see what they have to say about it.
You know, when I played Grand Slams and I was in my prime, you know, I would make the 4th round or 3rd, 4th round, and I knew that that was probably as far as I was going to go. You know, you obviously had the big 3, prime Murray, prime Wawrinka, prime Del Potro, prime Cilic, all the big servers, prime Isner, Berdych, Monfils, and then, you know, I was looking at the draw and I was like, and then me, and I was like, fuck, I'm probably not going to advance. I think now the slams are more open because what are the chances that someone like me or someone like Songer was ever going to beat Rafa, and then the next day you had to maybe play Novak, and then the next day you had to play fucking like the chances of beating those guys multiple times in a slam was basically zero. Well, I think now you know, if Sinner, Alcaraz, or like one of those guys has one bad day, the draw is like, that section is wide open for everyone. I just think, yeah, like I would love to have played during this era, like of my prime, for sure. I think I would have been making 4th round or quarters pretty easy, to be honest. When you saw Federer, Novak, or Nadal in your quarter, it was or like 3rd or 4th round, it was like, how do you want to go home, basically? That's how good they were. It was like, how do you want to lose, basically? They were the 3 of the greatest of all time. Like they were competing against each other. They didn't even look at anyone else. They were just like, yeah, for me, I was like, fuck yes, I'm losing to Federer this week, or yeah, I'm losing to Novak this week. Oh, well, not Novak, but Nadal, you know. But
as the match goes on, obviously Rafa and Novak, it was always like as the matches went on, like they got so good. But like him is like how he starts the matches. He starts like it's like no tension whatsoever. And then in terms of the rallies, there's really no safe spot. Like you kind of have to hope that he's going to miss at some point. The guy's is too good. Like when I played Roger, I can't sit here and say like I played prime Roger. Like, you know, it was the year he retired.
yeah, fair enough.
His last match at Wimby. So it's like, if I'm like, yeah, like, nah, Roger compared to Sinner, I'm saying, yeah, Sinner every day. In my experience, like Carlos or these guys, when they play really good, they play probably at a similar level, you know, than what these guys were playing. The game is, by fact, it's quicker. Is it better? Are the guys better tactically, have more tools? I don't know. Because like these guys, what they became masters at is like finding ways to win at like any cost. And that's what made them so consistent. We all know how good Carlos and Sinner can play. But these guys were beating everybody regardless. I mean, if they played really well, it was over. But even on days when they weren't playing that good, I think Rafa, Novak had the ability to find ways to win that we haven't seen. I don't know, that takes years, that takes many tools, that takes, you know, you need to be smart tactically. So over time, we'll see. It's too early to say. And for guys like me and others, I mean, yeah, obviously, we don't want that to happen. If I was them, like if I was in their position, other guys wouldn't want it to happen either. Like that's the competition. That's how it goes. Like now we're, like you said, we're at the beginning of their dominance, you know, in terms of Grand Slams and everything else, really. Guys 10, 15 years ago were talking like this too, about not letting the big 3 win everything or Roger Rafa win everything. So that's when you're like, that it is remarkable how they were able to still dominate, because you had many guys who didn't want this to happen. Tsonga, Berdych, Nishikori, Ferrer, like these guys were elite players, some of the best in history, but they weren't able to spoil their party.
Nadal, there was years he was winning the French without losing a set, right? And then there will be ones where he's surprised in the first round playing a 5-setter, 2-3, but then still find the way to win the French that year. That's kind of the biggest differentiator, and that's what makes the biggest difference, right? It's about like reinventing yourself a couple of times, right? You can look at Roger's career. You can see like a few different phases of how he played and the things he was doing well, right? It was very obvious when he came back in 2017. It's like, oh, hitting over the backhand a lot more. You watch him play early on in his career, 2006, 7, every return was kind of a chip just down the middle, right? Then he starts hitting over more returns. Then he did the thing to bring in like taking the return early for a couple of tournaments to try that and come to the net. Then you see Nadal, who was at the beginning of his career kind of just like moonballing the backhand down the line and saying like, okay, off your backhand, you're mostly going to have to go cross. I'll win it. Like as soon as I can get Then now you see it, like the way he finished his career was hitting over that backhand cross court hard quite a bit. Still wouldn't necessarily always take it up the line as much, but he was willing to rip that one cross That's the thing that I think is the biggest change. Novak Djokovic starts hitting second serves big sometimes, right? And this is kind of crazy when he was working with Todd Martin, but there was like a moment where he's like 16 double faults into a match, like these kind of things, like really struggling with it for like, what is that, 2009, 10? Like, so all these guys have had to go through a lot of inventions of their game to stay on top of it. And I think that's why I would say the gap is bigger, because Alcaraz is kind of going through this moment where people are questioning him a little bit, like at this moment, which I think is the dumbest thing. It's just, he's going to go through that phase where the first time he came around, everything was like an upside, right? Everything was a surprise. He beats this person. There was not that pressure of like, you can't lose to this person. Then you kind of ride that wave, because those things don't end in a moment, right? You get on a good run, that momentum lasts. But then you kind of hit a wall and you have to see like, okay, what's the next thing? And Yannick obviously had that last year, because there's a lot of players that can be the best player in the world for a week, a month. But to get your ranking up to number one in the world, that's like, Novak, how many times do you watch him like, who sets to love down? And it's like, okay, most people would be like, it's done. But the whole narrative, you can just watch like, oh, it's not over yet. That's the most thing. Oh, it's not over yet. It's not over yet. That like is such a common thing that these guys do, because they can just go back to this and say, I'm going to make sure you beat me. I'm not going to give you this. And I'm sure if you watch Novak's matches now, I bet you if you listen to commentators, nobody's saying like, oh, now he has to close this out. It's against Novak, right? It's like one of those reputation things, those intimidation things, takes so long to build up, but you can lose it so quickly. For Novak, Roger, Rafa, Andy, they were also like taking all the Master Series seriously, and every week was a series, like full on week, right? It wasn't just like honing in on the Grand Slams at that point. We would go around the locker room, you'd be like, quarters is a good week, right? Because that's about where the draw ends, right? Because these guys are there every semifinal, right? So like
In the quarters, you feel like you won the tournament.
that mentality has changed so much. And that's why I think like younger players broke through earlier, because you had 3 and a 4th guy, depending on surface and conditions, but they were sucking all the air out of the room.
Top 3 not existing anymore, because it's going to be way more players competing for big tournaments. I think the level has really increased. Like, you get great players in 4th rounds now on slams, quarterfinals. You get players that are really tough to beat. And that was not really the case about 5 to 6 years ago. It was not the same. We need superstars. We need people that are doing big things in the sport. They're incredible athletes, amazing people, both of them. I can say that it pushes me to want to be better when I see them play. You see them play, it's almost as if they have a second forehand from the back. When you see them play, especially Yannick Sinner. Sometimes I see him and I'm like, damn it, like it's crazy. He's slapping the backhand as if it's a forehand. So you see them, move around the court without many signs of weakness. There isn't sort of a big hole anywhere in their game. The baseline game of those guys, I would consider myself in there as well. Why not? We're machines behind the baseline. We're working our way through the baseline, trying to win points as effectively as we can, and we're striking the heck out of the ball.